Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching this in the world. I hope you guys are doing okay. So before this video starts, let me just apologize if you guys hear any noise in the background. My brother is over and he is a Pokemon streamer and they're doing some sort of raffle and giveaway, so he keeps on screaming. So I apologize if you hear any random Pokemon names pop up in this video. But today we're going to be discussing the topic of downplaying. Now this topic has come up because the other day I posted a tier list and people were very critical of my tier list, as I assume they would be, which is completely fine. But there was a lot of messages in there that kept on saying this guy is downplaying, this guy is downplaying, and I'm going to try and not make this a personal thing, although I will give my point of view towards at the end of what I think of this. But downplaying in fighting games is such a prevalent thing. It's something that you hear all the time. Whenever you're talking to people, whenever the conversation comes up of characters, you have a lot of people saying, oh, this individual's downplaying, or this individual is pretending like their character is not as strong as what they are. And I think the reason that people do that is because a lot of people that play fighting games tend to have quite big egos, which kind of makes sense because the style of game that we're playing is about one man beating the shit out of another man, and even though it's virtual, a little bit of that real life source carries over into the game. And so I think a lot of people that play fighting games have big egos. I'm not ashamed to admit I have a very big ego. I don't like losing, so I completely get it. There's also the flip side of that where people upplay their opponent's characters. Because a lot of big egos come into play when you're in fighting games, a lot of the time people will upplay the opponent's character. So say for example, you've got a Kazuya versus Jin match and the Jin player loses over and over again. They'll start to say things like, oh, Kazuya's so silly because of this, Kazuya's so silly because of that, you won because of this, you won because of that. That's something that is very common in fighting games. You hear it all the time. Pretty much no matter what game you're playing or what tier of character you're playing, you'll hear it from somebody. Now the reason that I believe a lot of people downplay their characters is because they want their victories to mean something. When you downplay your character, it makes it seem like you worked harder than the other person, or that your wins are more valid because your character is not as strong as people are making them out to be. And I think that's because of public acceptance. I don't think people would care as much about downplaying or upplaying if they weren't worried about what the public thought of them. What I mean by that is when you have matches in tournaments or even on ranked, if you see the top ranked player and they're playing a particular character, if it's say a character that is seen to be a top tier, you will automatically go to, well, who's surprised they're playing that character, whoever that character might be. And if somebody wins tournaments with a particularly strong character, like for example when Super Akuma would do very well at tournaments with Akuma, people wouldn't give him his flowers because of how powerful Akuma was, versus somebody like Rangchu who won the Tekken World Tour with Panda, which admittedly is a very impressive thing to do considering in Tekken 7 Panda is considered one of the worst characters in the game. And so I think it's all about people wanting to be taken seriously and wanting to feel like they're as strong as their rank or their tournament win shows. And so at some point, you as a fighting game player have probably encountered somebody saying that you only win because of the character that you're using, or you yourself have probably said to somebody that you are only winning because of the character you're using or the particular move that you keep on spamming. This is all downplaying and upplaying. Now in my personal opinion, I don't think people should worry too much about downplaying and upplaying. I've never worried about it, and I've never looked to downplay or upplay one of my characters. I've certainly encountered it, don't get me wrong, and as a Feng Wei main in Tekken 8, I encounter it all the time. Now in response to the tier list video, because I read all of your comments and I do find a lot of them interesting, and I know that there's a lot of pushback on my tier list, which is completely fine. I knew when I made it, people were going to push back on it. After I made the tier list, I went and looked to see what other people were saying, and I came across the main man's tier list. Now I know his one is not final, it was like a very brief tier list, and the top echelon of characters that he had in there didn't look too different to mine. One thing that was really glaring to me is where he put Feng Wei as well.
Feng Wei, for example, I don't think is the strongest character in the game. He's still really great, but he got huge nerfs this patch. The biggest ones were back turned 2 in Heat is no longer a launcher when you dash out of it. You know, it's incredible to think of, but before, you know, he would do that tornado, you know, in Heat where it's like plus 11-ish into back turned, and it was a forced mix-up where you had a throw mix-up. He has his 2 button to launch you, mid launcher, and he has an unseeable low launcher. That used to be the mix-up, but now he lost the mid launcher. It will now, when you heat dash out of it, it gives a guaranteed stomp or forward 3. So that's actually a huge nerf. No longer has, but why did he ever have an unseeable launching 50-50? Low launcher, mid launcher, throw mix-ups, knockdown mid elbows, like the sky's the limit when he has his back towards you. So that was a huge nerf. And he also lost up for 2, is now jab punishable on block. Massive nerf. But that was also OP. And also the jailing free mid-high, it does 10 less damage now. Why did that ever do 35? I don't know. Now it does 25. So big nerf to poking game and also nerf to combo game. And we also nerfed the damage on back to free, yet again nerfing his combo damage. We're going back to their old philosophy with Feng Wei, which was, okay, you can be an all-rounder and do every single fucking thing you can possibly do, moveset-wise, but you're not going to do big damage. And that's why they also nerfed forward 3 in 104. So with all of that, I don't think Feng Wei is the best character in the game. And to be honest, he is a little bit more effort than most people think. Maybe we do this. To be honest, he is really nerfed, I think.
I was like, oh, that is very interesting. It's not that different for where I put Feng Wei, but I could see that there was a lot of pushback when people came to my video to see where Feng Wei was placed. The reason that I find it very funny, and the reason why I find people saying that that's downplaying, is that in my previous tier list, I had Feng Wei ranked, I think, 2nd or 3rd, and everybody was like, most honest Feng player. So why would my honesty have disappeared in the next tier list? Doesn't really make any sense. And it doesn't make complete sense when people go to Arslan, for example, or Main Man, or whoever it might be, and continuously say you're downplaying your character. One thing people need to understand is that everybody's going to see the game differently. There are going to be objective truths, but their tier lists are going to look very different per character. It doesn't necessarily mean somebody is downplaying. Now, I see no need in downplaying because, and I mean this respectfully guys, I don't care what people think of the characters that I'm using. I find it quite funny when I'm using strong characters. As a matter of fact, I'm very open in saying I like going to strong characters. I like characters that make people quiver on the character select screen. You know, like when you see a certain character and you're like, oh my god, this is going to be so long. Those are the characters I like going for. So if Feng Wei was the strongest character in the game, I'd have no problem saying that. Let's not forget, I am a Marduk main, so I have no shame in the way I play Tekken. I know full well in Tekken 7 when my back was against the corner, I was carried by the Valet Tudo stance. So if you guys are wondering why I put Feng Wei just outside of the top 10, it's because I feel like the nerfs were quite significant to him. I don't think that he's a weak character, just to make that clear to you guys. The reason that I made my tier list down to A- and I didn't put a B tier in there is because I think every single character is very strong. So even if you see the bears at the bottom, I believe the bears are more than competent enough at the most optimal level, because I was making that tier list with the most optimal play in mind, that at the most optimal level the bears can still take on a Dragunov, a Nina, a Feng Wei, a Shaheen. And we see that in tournament. Even though the bears are not as popular in tournament as other characters, the people we've seen using them like Rangchu are able to take on these high tier characters, the characters that are considered to be the strongest characters in the game. Now the topic of upplaying seems to really annoy people. When somebody upplays your character, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter get upset by it, but guys, I don't understand why you do. It shouldn't bother you. I think it's good for people to have pushback, and I'm always open to my tier list being contested, but I don't understand why you would let it bother you. Just for some context, I've played Black Adam in Injustice, who was the strongest character in the game. I played Algo in Soul Calibur, who would be considered top 3, maybe top 2, possibly top 1. I played Jinpachi in Tekken Tag 2, and whilst he wasn't the strongest character in the game, he was probably the character you wanted to run into the least. I played Marth in Super Smash Bros. Melee when he was very, very strong. And I played Feng Wei and Marduk in Tekken 7, so I have no problem in telling people when I'm playing the best characters in the game, and I think that Feng Wei, other than Akuma and maybe Geese, was probably the 3rd best character in Tekken 7, so he was the best Tekken original character. And then close behind him, maybe in 4th or 5th place, was Marduk, and Marduk is extremely cheap. And guys, make no mistake about it, when Marduk comes out, if you guys hate Feng Wei now, you're going to hate Marduk a whole lot more. For those of you that are playing Tekken 8 for your first Tekken game, I want you to clench your butt cheeks and prepare yourself, because you're going to be in for a long day on the Shambolic Showdown streams. And speaking of the streams, which we will be doing this Sunday is going to be dedicated to Bison. Now, I've been playing Bison in Street Fighter 6 since he came out, and since you guys want to call me a down player, let me just throw this out there. I'm not entirely sure about the tiers in Street Fighter 6 yet. I'm not entirely sure where people sit, because I've only just jumped back into the game, but I played Bison, and I would be surprised if there was a stronger character in that game. I'm going to be playing Bison going forward in Street Fighter 6 now, because obviously he's my long-term main. I've played him in every single Street Fighter game he's appeared in, and if he remains top tier, I don't care. I don't care if they buff him. And I also don't care if anyone says that I'm only winning because I'm using Bison. It's inconsequential, guys. I don't think you should let anyone's comments about downplaying put you off the game, because it does put a lot of people off playing their characters. I've seen people say and talk about this a lot on Twitter. I think as long as you're having fun with the character, don't worry about what other people are saying about your character. I have my personal feelings towards some characters in Tekken 8, and I'm sure I'm going to have certain feelings towards some characters in Street Fighter 6, but you should never allow that to stop you playing the characters that you like. So again, for those of you that were saying I was downplaying Feng Wei in my tier list, I wasn't. That's genuinely how I feel about Feng Wei in the new patch. Just to reiterate, I still think Feng Wei can destroy every single character on the roster. I think in the right hands, Feng Wei can absolutely murder people in a few seconds. However, I just don't think he sits at the top echelon anymore. I think that the nerfs to him were fair nerfs, but they were significant nerfs. And I think there's a couple characters that sit ahead of him. Now, that doesn't invalidate your wins as a player. That doesn't mean I am upplaying you and so that your skill as a player means less. It's just that he's got to sit somewhere on the tier list. And even though it might just be the main man right now that agrees with me, roughly on where he sits, I did speak to a few other people, but I'm not going to say who they were because they're going to do their own tier list in their own time. It doesn't mean that I was downplaying the character. So I just wanted to make that clear to all you guys. I didn't have too much time to record a video today because I've got a birthday party to go to, so I wanted to get this one out just to go over downplaying and upplaying a little bit. And I saw you Horang mains, you weren't happy with my comments. My comments about Horang, I did find them quite funny, and I stand by them. Now I think I got something wrong with Horang. I don't think he has armor on that drop kick that I was talking about, but it definitely feels like it's got a phantom range on it. Irrespective of that, I still stand by majority of my Horang comments, and I stand by my comments with all the characters in this game. I believe it's a skill issue if you're getting blown up constantly. I think even if you're using Eddie or Panda or Kuma or Devil Jin, you can still win. You're still very competent on the game, and I can't wait until Marduk gets here to see how much everyone's gonna cry. Gonna be a good time. But anyways, guys, that's all I really wanted to say for today. I'm sorry it was a quick video. I did actually have 2 videos planned. One of them is going to be with Perfect Legend about Sparking Zero, so look forward to that. There are some other things that I want to cover, but for today this is going to be it. So make sure you tune in on Sunday. We're going to be doing the live stream for Bison, so if you're a Street Fighter 6 fan or you've been waiting to play Street Fighter 6 with me and other people that come to the streams regularly, this will be your chance. Other than that, guys, take care of yourselves, have a good day, and peace.